Hello, everybody, and first of all, thank you very, very much to everyone who went over and grabbed a free copy of my book, World Horoscopes. Haven't got it up here. I did really well in the UK. As I say, I was ranking in politics and perspectives in law. Not quite sure what that topic even means, but that was rather good. Did well in America as well, so I hope that will boost sales. I'm going to do another special next week, so if you didn't grab it, but if you want to grab it, it's only $2.99. Paperback $7.99. I think that's very, very reasonable. I'm going to be doing, Poland isn't in the book, but I'm going to do a special prediction on Poland coming up probably tomorrow because it's quite significant. Now, one of the themes in my world predictions was the war with Ukraine, which, according to what I saw in the Russia chart, in the Ukraine chart, and particularly in the UK chart, is really going to crank up. Now, you'll remember I said there were strong similarities to the transits Uranus is making in the UK chart to the Crimean War, which is what led to me to believe Britain would really be spearheading, yes, along with America, but it seems that most of the most bellicose voices are coming from Tobias Ellwood and people within the UK speaking tough against Russia. Now, the latest statement by Tobias Ellwood was something along the lines of, if the United Kingdom sort of leads the way in standing up to Putin, then the rest of the European countries would sort of take that lead. Now, one of the predictions I've made is that's not going to happen. A lot of the countries are going to balk at this and pull away from NATO, and NATO will become more fractured. It won't really have much cohesion. One of the countries which I believe will stand with the UK is Poland, particularly because they are the closest when it comes to that region. So I do see that once with the current, mainly, well, let's put it this way, a lot of the activity conducted so far in this special operation in Russia has been by the Chechen forces and the Wagner Group. They haven't brought on their full Russian military, but that will be happening. With Ukraine, they sort of down to having to recruit the 16-year-olds, the over 60s, because there's been quite a casualty rate. In fact, as some say, it's 5-1. 5 Ukrainians dead or injured to 1 Russian soldier dead or injured. With that proportionality, it's really hard for Ukraine to continue. However, there are many foreign troops, mercenaries in there fighting with Ukraine. We are basically already at NATO level involvement. Henry Kissinger was saying he now believes that Ukraine should join NATO. That's like a red rag to the bull with Russia. It's almost a declaration of war. And I think there was a kind of a slip up by one of the British MPs, or German, I think, hinting that basically Ukraine is de facto a member of NATO and NATO forces are already in there ready to defend Ukraine. So it's going one way. Now, according to Gonzalo Lira, who I wouldn't say I take him as gospel because he's living in Kharkiv in Ukraine, yet he seems very partial to Russia. So you've got to balance that out a little bit and wonder what his agenda is. But he was saying that now Soledar, I think that's how you say it, and Bakhmut have, for all intents and purposes, fallen. That's one of the last lines of defense. There's only one slightly weaker line of defense. If Russia do knock that out, which seems likely, they will move through. They're in full Cold War fighting mode. I think Russia are calling up more and more of their regular fighting force and will be moving through. I know Britain is sending 12 tanks. 12 tanks in a country that's bigger than France. That's interesting. What's that going to do? But the key factor here is NATO are very low in terms of their own stocks. Now remember, Donald Trump used to castigate NATO and saying that they expect America to fight all the European wars, but none of them invest in their military, apart from, I think, Greece and the UK were doing most of the investing. So even with the UK, I mean, the armed services have been extremely neglected. I know year after year on UK column, they were saying that they're not investing in the army and the navy. I think they've got one flight carrier operational, the other one isn't even operational. So the combined forces of the UK could fit into the Aston Villa football ground, which isn't even a top tier team. So we're talking about a very small fighting force. And then you look at the rest of NATO, no one's particularly worried about Spain's, Portugal's, Ireland's and Netherlands' army. You know, I don't know if Ireland is in NATO, so just forget I said that. So they underinvest in the army, but then they want to talk tough. and get really bellicose, probably because they think they're going to fall back on America if it all goes wrong. But UK continue to really talk tough. Now, of course, the newspapers are telling you Putin's unwell, he's on his last legs, the Russian army's losing, they've got no equipment, they've got no bullets, they've got no armaments, blah, blah, blah. Yes, but they've been saying that since May, and yet it still carries on. And despite the fact there were setbacks because of the Saturn square Uranus that was affecting Russia's chart, that's their 868 chart, things are now beginning to roll again, particularly in the cold weather. They should kind of steam through and take that, but Poland are getting more and more involved. I believe Russia want to wrap it all up by September before Poland's got a full chance to deploy all their armed services. But again, my prediction is for it hotting up, for Russia to increasingly take territory, and for it to lead to fracturing in NATO and to increasing economic and financial decline in the other European countries because of it. I did want to say something about increasing pressure on Sunak this week, more striking going on, walkouts planned, more bad news really overall for the UK economy, lots of job losses in the tech sector, Microsoft cutting jobs, Amazon, that was all quite interesting. You're beginning to see a lot of these job cuts coming through in sectors you wouldn't necessarily expect, including in Britain there's an electric car manufacturer, I had it here, hundreds to lose job as electric car battery maker British Volt collapses. So I don't think things are going that well with the electric car market either. I think they're not selling a lot of these electric cars. They're getting stuck with them. Now the British maker of the electric batteries for the cars going bust. I don't think that plan's going very well. Now, while they're gathering at Davos, apparently loads of seats empty, a lot of the A-list celebrities not wanting to go, more and more people not pitching up, not as eager to be associated with. I think their brand is tarnished. A lot of people are seeing them now. No, sorry, yeah. They'll be saying I do Illuminati symbols now, won't they? Better do another one just to keep the conspiracy theorists happy. No, what I mean is people are seeing them now for what they are. And the brand is deteriorating. Not as many people want to be associated with it. I'm not saying the plans don't go on, but they're less likely to want to be associated with it. And, oh yes, I was interested in one of my regulars, subscribers, long-term subscribers, said to me about Andrew Bridgen. She wasn't quite sure about him. Now, he does, in his Northwest Leicestershire constituency, have two extremely famous constituents, and they are Kate and Jerry McCann of Missing Madeline fame. And my friend was saying that, you know, he was doing a lot of supporting of them, which, of course, some people would see in a certain light, bearing in mind their strong connections with Gordon Brown. They were very well politically connected. Otherwise, we could just see, well, he is the MP, I suppose, you know, it's only right that he's doing things to help them. I did look on Wikipedia at his voting record, and it seems he's been doing all the right things. He was against Theresa May's weak Brexit. He wasn't too keen on David Cameron. He was very pro all the Brexit-y kind of things, making good noises there. And the other thing that I find quite interesting is he was a friend of Palestine. And apparently he'd been accused before of being anti-Semitic because he said that due to the very strong lobbying groups in America, it was important for Britain to be the critical friend that Israel needs. And of course, people didn't like that. But just the fact that he was kind of a Tory on the Palestinian side, a little bit different. So it does show that in his past, he has had the inclination to think for himself. I may go over his Wikipedia page a little bit more, not to bore you because you can look yourself, but if you look at everything that he's been doing, pretty good, but he is wealthy. Like a lot of people, got 2 million home that he got paid out because HS2 was being railroaded right through his home. Don't know how I feel about that. Apparently there was some question marks there, and he's had various issues over expenses, blah blah blah, but I suppose pretty average for most MPs. But in terms of all the stances he's taken on most things, seem quite reasonable to me. Interesting that Kelvin Mackenzie, formerly editor of The Sun, very powerful editor of a newspaper in the UK, he was extremely nasty and rude about people who were skeptical about the vaccine, etc. Just a year or so ago, or a year or maybe less ago, very aggressive in terms of his stance to anti-vaxxers. Now 3 tweets came out this week. That seems to be shifting. Now this is incredibly interesting because as a newspaper editor, he's like a gatekeeper, because these people see an awful lot of stuff coming across their desk that never gets to print. Journalists present them things, they hear from their sources, they hear from their establishment sources, they get told by the government, you can say this, you can't say this, D notices all. So he's seen an enormous amount of stuff that we in the public would never get to see, and he still has those contacts. So he's obviously hearing certain things, which means he's softening his stance, backpedaling. This could be the breaking of the dam, the kind of changing of the narrative that we've all, been wondering when it was ever going to happen. Yeah, so Kelvin McKenzie, I showed you the other day, James Whale, how he's sort of changing his tune. But you just think, how much does it take? Because there are certain people, the Matt Hancock, Sunak, Zawahiri, Javid, whoever else, all of them, everyone in the government, I just saw those particular ones' tweets, who absolutely doubling down. So you wonder where it ends. I know they are so invested politically, possibly financially, in terms of legalities. The last thing they would want is for all this to turn on its head. But at some point, surely they just can't hold back the kind of surge, the tsunami of information that's coming forward. I don't know how they're going to extricate themselves from this position. They've is this the cross they're all going to die in? I don't know, but I think they're in on a sticky wicket, a lot of these politicians, so we'll see what happens. Yes, you're wondering why I've got Ofcom. Now, Ofcom is the regulator for our so-called free speech. Ofcom regulates what can be seen on TV, radio, etc. in the UK, and I just want to go and show you something that I found quite interesting on their page. Now, they say we have a free press, but we obviously do not. Reject what's happening. Oh, no, I don't want that. I want their Wikipedia site. If any of you guys have been watching the sad story of Adam Rowland, who was a physiotherapist, and he was working on the PGA Tour, on rugby league in the UK, and he is vaccine injured, and he's been doing a lot of shows with, I think he was on with Matt Letizia, and he was also on with originally with Gareth Icke. And he was talking about the very dramatic deterioration in his health that he's had. It's a very sad story, from being an extremely fit guy with no medical problems at all. I'd say he's about 50-something. He has written 150 letters to journalists across the UK over this time, trying to raise awareness and get his story heard. And he says that out of the 150 letters he wrote, he got about 5 responses. These journalists were partially interested. They took his details, but when it didn't pass the legal team and the editor, they had to get back to him. And he did get a little bit of a conversation going with them and saying, well, what is it? Why can't my story? I've got all my medical records. I can prove to you everything I'm saying. You can see me. I developed the symptoms right on the very night I had the thing. Why won't you carry my story? And they said that they, as a publications in the UK, cannot carry stories which A, might cause public panic, and B, contravene government policy. So we don't have a free press. They're closely tied in with the establishment. All these major editors, Piers Morgan in the past was one, not now, Andrew Pierce, Kevin Maguire, Kelvin McKenzie in the old days with The Sun, they work extremely closely. They are establishment. There isn't a free press. They're telling you what you're allowed to know, and they can't go too strongly on anything that's core to government policy. That's probably why, people like Katie Hopkins are one of the most banned people, still not allowed back on Twitter, etc., because she was a very strong voice talking about what was going on with mass migration in Sicily and how the NGOs and the government, the charities all work together, and how, well, I don't have to tell you on this channel what that's all about, but it's government policy to have the mass migration, which is why that's something else the papers won't go too strongly about, although there's a little bit. Farage is allowed to mention it in a certain amount, just so the constituency that are concerned about that feel that they are being heard. So there's Ofcom. Now let's see who's head of Ofcom. Chairman Michael Grade. No, there's an acting chairman that I want you to see. Chief Executive, yes, no, that's not the person I wanted to show you here, because this guy's partially retired now, and there's an acting chairman. Damn it, it was so easy when I looked myself, and now I want to show you guys. Current Michael Grade. Let's just go here to this Michael Grade, Lord Grade of Yarmouth, and preceded by, yes, now he has been succeeded by Anthony Saltz, who is acting. He is on the board of governors of the BBC, and he's also part of Ofcom. As you can see, he's worked on Rupert Murdoch's Sky Television merger. Tells you a little bit about his background, right? Although he was a lawyer, he went on to do various things, also obviously in banking, and there you go. He was appointed on the board of Bloomsbury Publishing and blah blah blah. But there's something else I want to show you. Here we go. In 1996, he became senior partner of Freshfields. He was a co-senior partner of Freshfields, Buckhouse, Deringer from 2000 to 2006. In 2006, he joined Rothschild as an executive vice chairman. And now he finds himself acting head of Ofcom. So he is in charge of the regulation of all print. It's definitely the television and radio media. So what you can hear. And as you can see, strongly linked to BBC as well. And he joined Rothschild. Just thought there was an interesting little linkage to flag up for you there, you know. Right, so I wonder who he represents. Okay, also very interesting that these establishment figures like Piers Morgan, how many scandals has that guy had? Look at his Wikipedia. You could see from the phone hacking, various other kind of insider trading. It wasn't quite insider trading, so don't quote me on that, but something I'd say akin to insider trading. There's been numerous scandals, but he always bounces back, doesn't he? Has a problem with a hacking scandal, phone hacking scandal in the UK, runs over to America, gets Larry King's job, comes back in here, and he's doing the, not X Factor, that other show, Britain's Got Talent, and on the TV, getting all the big contracts. These male characters never go away. That's why Clarkson will probably be back too. Don't feel sorry. If it's a woman, you never see them again. If there's a scandal, like Anthea Turner, had an affair, never saw her again. Probably won't see Katie Hopkins again. You don't ever see the woman again. But whether it's Philip Schofield or Piers Morgan or any of these, Jeremy Clarkson, they all get rehabilitated and they all get back. And that's not like a feminist comment. It just means that these people probably are assets of one way or another. That's why they, no matter what trouble they get into, they can always be recycled back again. So I talked about that. Wall Street are not happy with work from home. They were there, Wall Street representatives at Davos, saying work from home is for the birds, people are too unproductive. So that's another big scheme in this whole thing, not going particularly well. Did you see the story about the prostitutes doing a roaring trade with Davos in town? Aren't they sickening? Yeah. I think that's enough for the moment, because I just wanted to update you with all that and keep you informed. I see some lovely comments that have just come through when I checked my channel. Thank you so much for all that support and encouragement. And if you haven't got my book yet, it would be great if you went and checked it out and grabbed a copy, guys. Anyway, I think I'll leave it there. I hope you're all keeping warm in the UK, having some of that cold weather, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Bye.